Hey everybody, here we have another replay in the Object 430. This time we're on Mountain Pass and we're on the south spawn, which is highly disadvantaged on this map. As I pointed out in previous videos, and no doubt other people pointed out as well, it's rather imbalanced. Ever since this map was added to the game, which I think was back in beta, it's been heavily biased towards the north, the reason being that if you get a scout into the bush in the corner of E4 there, you can light across the middle and shoot tanks as they cross that gap there, all without being shot back at. Excuse me. However, I am playing a medium tank, a small, well-camouflaged, well-armoured medium tank that is quite fast. So the chances of me getting across there safely are pretty high, especially since the enemy AMX isn't particularly bright. It's unlikely he will actually do his job properly and scout across that gap. As I'm driving, I go for an RNG shot on the Leopard. It actually connects. It does low roll him, but that is just complete bullshit that even hit. I got really lucky with that shot there. So I'm safe. The problem is the heavies that were following us up, and some of the mediums even, are now caught in a bad position. They're going to have to either fight their way through or stay back and leave myself and these other mediums that managed to get past without any real heavy support. So here we have the enemy AMX, who has driven right in front of the vanguard of his medium tanks, actually, no doubt to tell his medium tanks that yes, there are enemy medium tanks in this position where they should be, and, you know, throw away its hit points in order to do that. The mediums coming down this west road can spot for themselves. There's no reason to ever bring a light tank down here. The enemy STA is the most exposed to me at the moment, and also the only one actively shooting at me, so I focus him down. It's not hard. The STA doesn't have really any armor, and he was exposing his giant cupola anyway. By contrast, I have this slight hill in front of me, which is partly blocking my view, but is also blocking the enemy's view of my squishy hull. Well, when I say squishy, I mean comparatively squishy. Out of all the tier 10 mediums, the only one with better hull armor is the E50M. I guess the 4202 if you count only the upper hull because of the angle, but the 430 is really quite well armoured. It's just that the hull, of course, is only 120mm. It's mostly the slope that gives it that bouncy quality. Its turret is up to 248mm of armour, most of it quite steeply sloped, so obviously the turret is much harder to crack. It's playing a little fast and loose with my hit points there, which was obviously not a good idea. I could maybe get away with it driving out in front of the T-34 because he's really bad at aiming and relatively low rate of fire, but the Leopard, I really couldn't afford to drive in front of his gun. So I deal with the T-34 first while the Leopard's distracted. Leopard then comes careening around the corner, bounces off me, I miss him, but I'm able to just drive out and pop him as I go past. So here Photo Finish has shown up, the best player on the enemy team, and also the biggest pain in the ass to take out. 215B has a lot of hit points, surprisingly good armor for something vaguely based on the Conqueror, and a very, very high DPM, high accuracy gun. So I keep Photo Finish behind a rock where he can't shoot me, and try to deal with the Leuva first. The Leuva isn't really a huge threat to me as a tier 10 medium, but to get in a fight with both of these guys at once would be suicidal, basically. So the goal here is to take out the lower tier gun and leave Photo Finish all by his lonesome, while I still have two other mediums in support of me. Now one other medium after he finishes off the Wheezy. With the Leuva now dealt with, I can focus on Photo Finish. I'm still keeping the rock between us, because his 120mm gun can deal quite effectively with my hull armor, but not if I give him bad angles, which I was doing right there. He had to hit the side of my tank, and that's not really going to pen from that angle. I push up while he's slightly distracted, track him, force him to shoot my side, at a bad angle. It bounces straight off. But here you see an inherent problem in the 430. Now this was drastically overstated when the 430 first came out, but I would like to clear it up in this video. When trying to aim over the engine deck of the Object 430, you have two relatively narrow zones where you cannot depress your gun. They are approximately this sector here, and the same on the opposite side. So roughly from a 4 to 5 o'clock and 7 to 8 o'clock position over the rear hull, you have only 1 degree of gun depression, which is effectively nothing. You won't really be able to hit things very well at close range. Now the Object 430 is a squat tank. Its hull is very low to the ground considering, but it's not as squat as it used to be. It actually used to be quite a lot lower to the ground, and in that case the 1 degree of gun depression didn't even matter, because your gun was sitting about the same level as most tanks' hulls. Now it's a little higher, so if there's any difference in terrain height, and as you can see the ground is sloping ever so slightly downhill here, it makes it a pain to pen people. So we'll go back to the action here. I have got a double team going on here with the T-54, which is a good thing, otherwise I would probably be dead. However, Photo Finish obviously recognises me as the bigger threat and is focusing me. I want to keep the T-54 alive, but I also don't want to get myself killed, because let's face it, my gun is more reliable than his. He does eventually get taken out, but at this stage I get a bounce as Photo Finish shoots my gun mantlet, and I have a full side shot on him. We finish the match with just over 6k damage and 1 shot's worth of hit points left. Had Photo Finish penned me on that last shot, he probably would have killed me. It would have taken a bare minimum roll to leave me alive. I'm not even sure if he can roll that low. I'd have to run the math. I believe he can. Either way, it was a pretty good match. Uncharacteristically good for South Spawn Mountain Pass. Player skill can account for map imbalance somewhat, particularly if you're in a platoon. If you have a platoon of good players, South Spawn, North Spawn, there's not a huge amount of difference between them, especially if the enemy team don't have as many good players as you. But in this case, Photo Finish's team threw their tanks away in stupid places, and my own team played relatively well. There were a few people that maybe charged in a bit, but most of the guys on my flank played a good game. And, you know, I played a bit better than I usually do, and so I was able to help push through that last assault up the west side. This west valley is actually where most of the fight tends to happen on this map. You do get frontal engages on the bridge, but I mean, frontal engages are stupid. There's really no reason to ever take part in one unless you overmatch the enemy that badly. And Ice Road, again, is a frontal engagement for the most part. The only time, really, Ice Road becomes viable is when one team pushes too far around that corner and these guys here, or these guys here, depending which side of the map you're on and what your map control is like, can get side shots into them. So say if the enemy team pushed all the way down into D8, they'll be showing their sides and rears to friendly tanks pushed down into this bowl here, and also on the hill at H3, H4. But in this case, Ice Road basically cleaned itself up. Bridge wasn't too bad, and west was where the heaviest of the fighting happened. And as a general rule, west will be where this map is decided. Few points of note. First of all, the enemy AMX obviously didn't do what he should have done. He should have gone to E4 and spotted from just by where that AT-15 is. He didn't. Instead, he came bucketing down this west flank, which is not smart. Don't do that in a light tank. A lot of light tank drivers as well will drive just straight down into that bowl or up onto this hill. That's really stupid. Don't do it. If you're playing North Spawn and you get a light tank, go to that bush. That will spot you everything that crosses south, depending on the speed of your tank. If it's something really fast like an AMX, or even say like a Bat or a Leopard, you will spot everything. Even in slower light tanks, you can still spot the heavies and slower mediums as they cross. And honestly, if you manage to bottle up a whole team there, you'll have side shots for days. I believe I've already uploaded videos where that's happened. I think there was one playing against another Goon platoon where I tracked the lead tank and it fucked up a whole bunch of them because they all bumped into each other and got caught out in a big traffic jam. That is the dream as a light tank. I mean, if you spot that much damage, that's going to be a good game for you no matter what. Late game, or say if you're in a medium tank, you can't really afford to go to that spot, say a 4202 or an E50, something that doesn't have the camera to spot, but does have good view range, relatively decent armor. Late game you can actually push across, get hull down on that hill, as I've shown in a 4202 video previously. But early on in the game, before you have control of the map, you really need to be spotting from your own side of the gully. South Spawn doesn't have really a corresponding light tank position. I mean, theoretically, you could rush a light tank up into the rocks here, but you don't have as much camo as north, and you just don't have as good a sightline. The gap's also, as far as I can tell, a lot smaller, and for half of it, I mean, it's hard to show you without actually being able to go into a spectator camera mode, but you can see it kind of from my position here. There's a slight gully that runs from the enemy spawn, the north spawn, all the way down to where this crest is, and there's a hill here in line with that rock, so you're partially hull down there. So any of these guys coming out from here, unless they ride up on that hill or come too far south, are going to be at least partially covered by terrain. The other thing is, because they are leaving their spawn south-southeast, they're going to be driving directly towards you, meaning front armor. You only have a very, very limited window where they're showing their sides, much more limited than they have on you. The other thing is as well, often these guys will get a shot off as you cross there, and then if you do the thing puppies often do, which is run up on this ridge to try and get shots, they'll hit you there again. Not wise. So early game really is the big decider of whether you suffer at the hands of Mountain Pass or not. If you can get tanks across there relatively unscathed, you've got a really solid shot at winning, because once you actually get into these positions here, south isn't too bad. You do have a series of hills here, as you could see me working at the start of the game, which give you decent hull cover, in fact decent camo as well, and good shots up towards this bend here. The only problem is it's within shot of artillery, so that whole game I was praying the T-92 would focus somebody else, and thankfully he did. But yeah, early game is critical. If South gets mauled early game, it's essentially over. There's very, very little you can do to recover it. Whereas North, you haven't got much chance of getting mauled at the start of the game, because you're just in an inherently stronger position. So hopefully at some point Wargaming will take a look at that, but I mean, the map's been in the game so long without any changes that I kind of doubt it. Anyway, as ever, thanks for watching. If you enjoy listening to me be bad at World of Tanks and watching me make terrible life decisions, subscribe to the channel. There will be more coming. There will always be more, because if there's one thing I can't stop myself from doing, it's uploading World of Tanks videos. I'm not going to pester you to like stuff, because I honestly don't care. If you want to comment, do whatever. But if you do enjoy this, just know that there will be more of it there for you. There should be, I think, a couple more Object 430 games coming in the next couple of videos, and then we'll move on to something a little bit different. So there's something to look forward to. Thanks, and good luck in the game. You will need it.